What's up, and welcome to The Art of Being Well. I have some exciting news. Every few episodes, we have giveaways. We're having a giveaway, guys.
Oh, you didn't tell us.
Yeah.
Giveaway.
Oh, that's the theme song.
Oh, boy.
I forgot about that. The theme, that wasn't the theme song. Anyways, we're giving away free signed books. They can pick which one. Do you guys have a favorite book? I mean, like, I'm not like fishing for compliments, but I truly want to know because I've never asked.
Gut feelings. 100% gut feelings.
Ketotarian.
Ooh, first and last.
I'm a purist.
So far. So you can pick which one of the 4 books and I'll sign it for you. And I get to sign like the sweetest little messages.
You
to
do.
people.
You just wrote a Merry Christmas one.
Yeah, I did a holiday one, and people are hearing this right after the holidays.
Do you have a favorite book?
Do I? Gut feelings.
Yeah.
Gut feelings, yeah. But it's, people... Yeah,
it's like picking a favorite child, though.
It is. Yeah.
It's
but they're
okay.
all beautiful. I mean, people. I feel like
Yeah.
inflammation spectrum is consistent over time. I sign most
I agree.
of the inflammation spectrum,
And
which I
that
find
one,
interesting.
I feel like that one's the most broadly.
Yeah.
Would be the most
And maybe with
applicable for
telehealth
people.
patients,
Yeah.
maybe that's why I'm
Yeah.
signing more. I don't know. And then I love intuitive fasting though too. I don't know. It's like it is like picking favorite. Anyways, so we're giving away free signed books. We're giving away free supplement protocol stacks that we have at drwillcole.com. So we have hormone support, we have gut health support, we have nervous system, brain support, inflammation. So check it out. We actually have a beauty hormone stack, beauty supplement stack as well. And we're giving away free telehealth consults, which could be with Andrea or Emily.
Hey.
For a chance to win, head on over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review The Art of Being Well there. Tell us what you love about the show. You could leave your Instagram handle in the Apple Podcast review itself, or take a screenshot and message me on Instagram at Dr. Will Cole. And while you're there, you can follow The Art of Being Well on Instagram at TAOBW, The Art of Being Well. And my team and I will go through the messages on Instagram as well as the Apple Podcast reviews themselves, randomly pick winners, and then you can tell us which one you want, either the telehealth consult, the books, or the supplement protocol stacks. You can only have one, guys. Don't be greedy.
Don't be greedy.
Maybe we'll do like one time and they won't know, and they'll just be like a big surprise where they get all 3.
Yeah, hey. That one can help, right? I'm not the one that makes this stuff up. I mean, Brooke, podcast, Dear Media. They're the giveaway helpers in all of this. So, good luck, guys. All right, about every month, once to twice a month, 1 to 2 times a month, we have devoted episodes to your burning health questions. They're scorching hot, guys. Keep them coming in. You can email hello@drwillcole.com, and your questions could be anything within functional medicine, wellness, health, nutrition, supplement questions, lab questions, health trend questions. Get as detailed as you want or as simple as you want, and we'll knock out as many of them in these episodes. So go back and listen to previous AMAs if you're into this sort of thing. But to help me out, you already have heard them today. They're 2 brilliant members that I have on my clinical team. They're 2 functional diagnostic nutritionist practitioners, FDNPs. So what's up, girls?
Hello.
Hi. I feel like, I don't know. I need a better introduction. I feel like I need like a drum roll.
Do you want a walk-in song?
Yeah, something.
Every time, and we've been doing this for years, and I feel like every month you expect something.
I do.
Like
I would like something.
Like, hi.
I don't know what else to do. I'm like, hey.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. So let's jump right into it. What's the first question?
Well, that's going to be me. All right, Dr. Cole. So the first question is, I have ulcerative colitis, UC, and owe functional medicine for helping me achieve remission. For the past 5 years, I have been completely symptom-free and med-free. That's awesome. Within 1 week of receiving my first dose of Pfizer vaccine, I entered a UC flare. 4 months and lots of bone broth later, that's funny, I am finally feeling better and almost out of the flare. I am extremely hesitant to get the second vaccination dose and fear it will cause me to go into another UC flare. Should I get the second dose? Have you had many autoimmune patients who were in remission and subsequently flared from the vaccination?
Yeah, so that's a big question. And obviously, I can't tell you what to do through a podcast.
Like disclaimer, it is not
Right.
medical advice.
Yeah, this is not medical advice. I can give you suggestions, things to look out, my own clinical experience, our telehealth patients' experience, what the research shows and is pointed to. That's what I can do. What I can't do is know the ins and outs of your case. I would say if you want a functional medicine perspective on that and us really guide you and have a little bit more of robust context, we can do that in a telehealth clinical setting. Okay, so first of all, what could go wrong with me answering this question?
So much could go wrong.
Yeah, I literally, you were reading it, I was like, wow, we're really just diving right
we're
in. Let's go.
starting the year off right. What could we do to offend people? Let's just start it off. So here's the deal. Let me be fully clear. You're going to be hard pressed to find somebody within functional medicine that's really, truly anti-vax.
Yeah.
What I think we are, most of us, are pro-choice when it comes to healthcare decisions, pro-informed consent, and individuals weighing the benefits of a vaccine or a medication or anything else, and the potential relative risks and the potential side effects, right?
Yep.
So any vaccine is modulating the immune system just like the virus is, just like COVID, the virus does. So just as COVID, the virus can have side effects, vaccines, which have other variables because they aren't acting exactly like the virus when you're talking about mRNA vaccines, they are modulating, they're moving the immune system in a way, right? And we have to kind of weigh what's the pros and cons. There's no great study that's showing like, yeah, this population absolutely shouldn't get this because you're going to have problems, because there's so much bioindividuality and context around this. So what does the research show? The research shows, I've seen studies anywhere between 3 and about 13% that are reported. And there's limitations to those studies because it involves the people reporting. It involves scientific journals to report this, to research these things, which hasn't been done in big, broad ways. But the data we do have, both in the scientific literature and anecdotally from clinical experience and patients reporting things, I would say it's as conservatively as 3% all the way to 13-something percent, 13.4%, I think I've seen, report flare-ups, autoimmune flare-ups post-vaccine. This is specifically COVID vaccines. And then there's a broader conversation, I think, between the different types of vaccines as well. But, you know, I would say talk with your doctor about that second. In my opinion, if I was this person and I had a really bad flare-up that took months to recover, I personally would definitely have to think long and hard. Like, what are the other variables that maybe I don't know about your case? Are you more worried about getting COVID, right, without the vaccine? Right. And I can't make that decision for you. What I would say is personally, I would not, I know, seeing you see flare-ups for as long as we've had with telehealth and helping people get out of them, it is no walk in the park. No. And to someone that had it the first, now you may, I've seen it with telehealth patients get the second one and they're completely fine. So I don't want to fear monger and be hyperbolic about it either. What I've seen clinically beyond the studies is that both the vaccine and the virus itself can cause flare-ups. And I would say during COVID, most of our, like we're talking about 2021, whenever the vaccines started becoming available and beyond, I would say that most of our telehealth patients were fully vaccinated. And I didn't see anything remarkable in the short term in their own small sample size, smallish sample size, a couple hundred, people of telehealth patients within the concierge setting, right?
Yeah.
And we have group models that there's maybe a few thousand. Nothing that sticks out. Have I seen people get flare-ups from the vaccine? Absolutely. Have I seen people get flare-ups from the COVID virus itself? Absolutely. So there is a relative risk. For someone to say there's no risk is lying to you. You just have to weigh the pros and the cons. Look, they didn't ask this. I think the bigger problem that I have with this topic is specifically with Pfizer and what's coming out with the Pfizer papers and the fact that they had information of these adverse side effects and they wanted it hidden for 75 years. But because federal judges are coming in and because of the Freedom of Information Act, they're releasing these papers.
Right.
And the fact that the pharmaceutical companies knew that there were these adverse side effects, inflammatory problems, heart problems, autoimmune issues, fertility issues, and they wanted it hidden. And the government knew too, but they couldn't release this information because for them to get that emergency use and rush it basically on the market, they had to hide that information. And the biggest problem that I have is you cannot have informed consent.
Yes.
If you don't know the relative side effects.
Right.
And you definitely can't have informed consent if there's mandates involved.
Yes.
Right.
And then at that point, if you're losing your job and if you're losing your livelihood, your quality, whatever, if you're shunned from society to a certain degree because you don't have a card to get into a hotel or a restaurant like New York did,
Right.
someone with autoimmune conditions, that is completely disturbing what we went through as a society, this sort of draconian Orwellian police state that happened during COVID. I think that's the criminal thing, is that people with autoimmunity were unfairly, and not just autoimmunity, people that just wanted to decide, I want to hold off on this because everything's being rushed and I don't see full transparency in studies, so I want to hold off. That's what I have a problem, especially now that we know the vaccine. And even early on, we knew the vaccine showed no evidence of decreasing spread. But yet that's what we were told. Talk about misinformation.
Right.
Yeah.
At very best, if you take the most loving, benevolent perspective on the COVID vaccine, it decreased the severity of COVID. Okay, so that's a personal decision to say, do I want a severe COVID case or not, depending on if I have the vaccine, if you're taking that benevolent view.
Right.
So I have a whole host of different issues with people being forced or fear-mongered or medically gaslit to do something that's a personal private decision between the patient and the doctor. But that's my soapbox about it, coming from what we've seen over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
So I think if we circle back to the question in and of itself, to her point, it's hard for us to give you that answer. One, again, because we can't give medical advice, but two, because we've seen it, to your point, both ways. We've seen patients that really depending on the year and the type of vaccine, that they have no symptoms, they're thankful they got it, they move on. And doesn't negate us being able to help them either.
Right.
So it doesn't contradict your care and working with our clinic. But then you do have patients that it's a variable, and there's obviously other variables that maybe it's a drop in the bucket that overflowed for them and it did cause a flare up. So we can't navigate that with someone unless we know more about their case. And ultimately, it is a deeply personal choice and one that we feel everybody should be able to make. But I 100% agree with you, Dr. Cole. How can you make informed consent? Because people could still choose it.
Yeah.
They would know. There are a lot of people that would have known all those known risks and still would have done it.
Yeah,
but
because if you're talking about 3 to 13% or whatever, where it's yes, it can happen, but it's not the majority of people. Yeah,
there's a lot of people who would have made the decision to do it one way or the other. But there should always be the choice of understanding what you are doing.
Yeah, and I think that's something that even within our clinic, with anything that we're talking to our patients about doing, we always want them to understand the why and what's involved and how the mechanism, all of that. So I think that this is absolutely a fair thing to expect, because especially when we are talking with people who have these chronic illnesses, for them to be making a decision based out of fear or fear of losing their job or all of these things, that's really hard. It's hard because we want them to be able to advocate for themselves. But when there was this mandate with not a lot of information, that's a hard thing to do. And it's a hard thing to walk with people on too. And so I think that it's so important for people to be able to advocate to get the right information and all of the information.
Yeah.
And can I play just devil's advocate for a second? We have to do the same thing for what we do. Like if we're going to ask a patient to go on a supplement that might cause them a die-off or a detox response, we're going to let them know. They can make the informed decision. We're not hypocrites here. We're like, this is part of that informed decision is you should understand what shifting your nutritional protocol might look like, how emotional release therapies might impact your day-to-day, these are all things that when it comes to someone's health and the things that they're doing, they should have informed consent. Whether it's a vaccine, a nutritional protocol, a supplement, there should be the ability to have the conversation. I just feel, to me,
and bigger like policy thing that I think a lot of us within our space have is like, well, okay, why can't there be any legal retribution against vaccine manufacturers, right? Why is there these special protections? And I think we just want the same level of rigor and transparency and studies and ability for people that have had damage to go have legal recourse if they have been damaged by something, to not have these special protections. And to me, I always found it to be very curious in the sense of the industry that gave us the opioid epidemic. We all know they knowingly made addicts of countless people. They somehow had their come to Jesus moment when it comes to vaccines, like they're just like doing good for humanity. No, they suppress information. They cherry pick data. They push through things in legislation as far as emergency use during times of turmoil, like a pandemic. This is not conspiracy theories. This is widely known. And I don't know why there's such cognitive dissonance with the sort of religious fervor around vaccines, as if you're a flat earther, to question basic corporate behavior that we see in many other spaces. This is no different.
If you can sue Starbucks for not giving you almond milk at the same price, why the hell can I not ask for damages to me if I did something under your pretense? You gave me a pretense of this was safe. That's what you delivered to me. Why would I think any different? If you actually had delivered it to me and I still willingly chose, that doesn't make you culpable. But if you don't deliver it to me, it gives me all the more reason to do that.
If you don't, exactly. If you don't tell them what the potentials are, how are we supposed to make informed decisions?
100%.
Yeah. Anyways, we could go on and on about this. We have strong opinions about this, but the sort of the taking things out of context, questioning this sort of religious, this secular religion of modernity, it makes us anti-vaxxers with this nuanced position. It's like,
you mean because I just want to understand? Like I asked a question because I want to think? I'm an anti-vaxxer. No.
I want to think,
right. The science is all about asking questions. It's actually 100%. Religion that has suppressed asking questions. And we've sort of conflated the two. Now it's like, it's the church of modern times, in my opinion. Anyways, let's move
Well, we're going to really shift some gears here because this is completely different.
I love it.
It's a two-parter, by the way.
This is a question, speaking of informed consent information, all these good things. This is a question regarding Botox, okay? So this person said, I have just entered my 40s, which opened up this realm of everyone 40 plus injecting their face with Botox. Here I am, chemical-free, organic, grass-fed, zero sugar, keto-tarian, everything. I have spent the past 8 years ridding toxins from my body and spirit. Do I keep up with the Joneses? Do I get the Botox? Dish it on Botox, doc. Injecting a substance into my face feels so wrong and against everything I stand for. I have invested into wonderful, expensive creams and even face tape every other day. She's committed. He or she's committed. Well, no one apparently has forehead wrinkles in their 40s anymore.
I have part two. This is another question.
Another person.
Another completely different person. We wanted to honor both of your questions, but they were very similar. This person I'll be turning 50 in a few months. So they're in their 40s. She's in her forehead wrinkle era. And I'm the only one out of all of my friends that has not tried Botox yet. I would never judge others for doing it, but there is something about injecting botulism into my body that scares the crap out of me. Is it safe to use? And are there any alternative treatments that may help with my aging lines, especially my 11s? Which for anybody that doesn't know what an 11 is, because I didn't, it's when you crinkle your nose down. Is that what you do? And it creates the 11s.
Middle of your eyes.
Wait, can you do it?
No, because I don't know. This is gonna be
She
on,
did it.
This
She
is gonna
did
be
it.
on YouTube for the rest of my
Gonna
life.
clip it. The social media.
Yeah.
Is
Oh
gonna
boy.
clip it for
Please,
sure.
please don't.
Andrea's 11s. Okay, so what's my hot take on this?
Which clearly I don't have Botox because I have 11.
You could do the 11s.
Yeah.
I would
I'm
say-
asking for a friend.
Okay.
And by friend, she means herself.
Okay, so again, we have a lot of clinical experience of people that tend to have reactions. I would definitely say not the majority of our patients have had Botox, but a good swath of them have.
I would say most of them, if not Botox, some sort of
Xeomin,
injections.
Yeah.
Sub-Xeomin or Dysport.
It's talked about often.
Yeah, it's talked about. And we rarely see issues.
Yeah.
Absolutely, there are cases where we have people that have
Yep.
flare-ups from these things, similar to the vaccines, informed consent. It can happen, is the majority of people know it's not, as far as I can see. And we're used to seeing these people that are prone to these flare-ups from things that are modulating the immune system. Arielle Laurie, who... she's on Dear Media with this podcast. I talked to her when we were in Austin together.
Okay.
And in August, you were there. You were in the room.
I was there.
In August 2023, she had her first flare up from it, and subsequently, I saw her this past year in the spring, and she still was getting small amounts of it, I think, early on, testing it, like not therapeutic doses. So she was like getting like micro doses of it to see, can I get like very small amounts? Like it would never work, but I just want to see, was this what was flaring me up? And even the smallest amount that would never be used therapeutically for beauty purposes still flared her up. So she knew, okay, her own N-of-1 experiment, even this little infinitesimal dose caused issues. And I've seen telehealth patients have similar stories. Like even the smallest amount, it triggered something in their body. So there's no, back to my earlier statement with the first question, there's no study, there's no like, for sure if you get this, you're going to have an issue. It is like, to use that bucket analogy, and again, it works for the vaccines too, or anything, right? Foods, viruses, stress, trauma, environmental toxins. What's going to cause the bucket to hit that tipping point?
Right.
And for some people, even the smallest innocuous thing like Botox can really create an inflammatory response. And the immune system has a memory. So then the immune system gets irritated at what was once not irritating at all, now has irritation from this couple units or whatever of Botox. So I would say, I don't know what the question was. Have I seen it? Yes, I've seen it. It's not the majority of people. And then number two, like what are the different ones out there? Botox, like the brand name Botox, they're all the same botulinum toxin, but Botox, Dysport, Xeomin, I think are the main ones,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I think there's maybe one newish one, but the difference is the level of other proteins and additives within the formula. So Xeomin is known to be a little bit more like less additives, like albumin proteins, other proteins that are basically stabilizers for these these drugs, these injectables. So maybe you're not reacting to the botulinum, maybe you're reacting to another excipient additive stabilizer. That's possible. So I would say you're probably reacting to the active ingredient, but maybe not. So maybe a pure formula like Xeomin will work. I've had derm colleagues of mine on the podcast, and some like Xeomin, some say they don't necessarily like it because it spreads out more. Botox is more localized, so in smaller areas it can cause some issues. So I would say that most dermatologists that I've had on the podcast prefer the original Botox, which has some of these other proteins in it, but that also makes it more localized. And Dysport, and then Xeomin is the other one. So they're all pretty much the same. It's just brand name and preference, I guess, from the doctor, more or less, and then what they're comfortable with using or not using. Let's talk about some alternatives real fast.
Yeah.
There's no replacement for botulinum toxin, right?
Yeah.
So for someone to say like that's going to be the same mechanism of action, no, you have to get the toxin for that.
Yeah.
But I would say some nice things that people can do to be supportive would be, I've seen good success with people that with consistent use of the Japanese face tape.
Yes.
You have to be consistent with it. I've seen
Yeah.
consistent use of red light therapy. I've seen good consistent use of people that have just good skincare regimen in general, that do skin cycling, really. I mean, like a day of some alpha or beta hydroxy acid at night, the next day doing a retinol, and then maybe 1 or 2 days of recovery and hydration, and then recycling that. Refer back to my conversation with Dr. Whitney Bowe on the podcast. Maybe we can put that in the show notes where we go into deep dive on that. I think that, again, not a replacement for Botox, but it's definitely helps the skin to be as healthy as possible and as supple and hydrated as possible. And derma rollers, which not some derms are really against that, but I've seen some people advocate for that as well. And look, inside out, right? Inside out, age gracefully, but what are you doing to support your gut skin axis on a day from a health with your breakfast, lunch, and dinner and supplementation? So those are some things that come to mind. Saunas, infrared sauna, which involves light as well, can be great for skin health.
There
Anything
are some
else?
topical peptides.
Peptides,
we put them into patient protocols that have skin issues that want to optimize their skin health, like copper peptide specifically.
Yes,
we do see great success. It is like not an alternative to Botox per se, but it is definitely you can see great results that are similar with consistent peptide use as well.
I would also say collagen. I know you said inside out, but collagen is a big thing. So collagen-rich foods, making sure that your skin elasticity is there. I would say that another thing is hydration. How many people are dehydrated and their skin becomes more easily damaged? So I would say, like, even making sure you keep up with your electrolytes. Emily probably has a whole bunch of opinions too, but I mean, even laser treatments and the vampire facials and the PRP, Morpheus 8 lasers. Like there are
it's a lot of great options.
There is a lot of things that you can do. My opinion is with someone who has autoimmunity and does get flares for things, it is not something at this point in time that I would be willing to add in, because it's just a variable that I don't know is worth the potential outcome. My husband also has really strong feelings about it, which he normally doesn't. So I find that funny.
So traditional.
He is. It's like very funny of him.
But you're weighing the pros and cons, right? You have that information and you're weighing that.
Because trust me,
yourself.
it's hard when I look at all my friends and I'm like, you are 5 years older than me. Why does your forehead not move? Like, you know what I mean?
I don't know. It just doesn't.
Or someone 3 years younger than you or 5 years younger than their forehead doesn't move. Weird.
It's weird.
So Emily, we're hinting around this.
I have a confession.
Yeah. So, what do you have to confess, my daughter?
Yes, Andrew teased me often, but yes, I do use Xeomin. I do get it done. I get it done. I mean, maybe once a year, probably every year and a half, actually. Okay. And I only have
also
it
partially because you were pregnant. Some of those,
but I've been doing it even before pregnancy. But it's like I don't even get it done more than once a year. But I mean, I have only ever done my forehead, 20 units, like very low amounts. But yeah, I've never had any issues with it. And I've definitely, Andrea reminds me of things to be aware about, which I appreciate. I think your friends should do that for you.
I honestly
and for
don't
each
care.
other. No, she doesn't. We tease each other, but
I have a lot of friends that actually do Botox.
But I think I think that we should be making intentional decisions with whatever we do.
And look, if talk about natural, I mean, technically it is natural. Biotoxins are natural.
Used in biological warfare, but yes, okay.
It's fine, okay? Look at my forehead. It doesn't move.
Well, yeah, so if you're watching this later and Emily's forehead isn't moving and mine is, that's why.
But yeah. So, but here's the thing. I also absolutely do all of these other things too. Like I'm not just relying on this. Like I really do want to treat my body well from the inside out. I want to make sure that, again, skincare is something that I'm very passionate about. And I'd still would say above that, working from the inside out is the best thing that you can do. And I still do red light therapy and all of these other things too, because I know
your red light.
Yeah, I know how helpful they really are for my skin, but for my well-being. And so I think that, ultimately, if I had to choose between the two, that would come first, always.
Yeah. We have a hormone. I talked about the beauty stack that we have at drwillcole.com from the inside out, some things that we curated for that purpose. And I would say that includes Holy Mane and Holy Radiance. Like those are two like game changers for people's skin and hair health and nail health. Has Autoimmune has marine collagen from the best sources and pearl powder, which has been used in traditional Chinese medicine for thousands of years, sort of build healthy tissue and elasticity and support skin health and hair health and nail health. And then the Holy Radiance has MSM, which is a sulfur compound that supports, again, anti-inflammation, optimal radiance, skin health, and phytoceramides, which supports hydration too. So I love the synergistic cascade effect of those formulas together.
Yeah. So I think it really ultimately at the end of the day, we may joke about it, but it's an and or approach. It's you can do all these both and yeah. Sorry.
I was like and or.
And or.
This is like getting Freudian. What are we talking about?
A both and approach. Yes, you are correct.
This is and or.
And or. I think I write too many emails. But at the end of the day,
Andrea is one of those people that says, as per my last email. She's that girl.
Yes. And we love it for her and for me.
Yeah.
Well, that's because someone has to.
She's speaking for all of us. She is.
Yes.
Someone's got to be the bad cop. It's okay. But as far as our approach, we're not going to turn a patient away. We're not going to tell them that they're undoing all of the things that they're doing because of this. But you know your body, you know your resiliency. Weigh the cost benefit, and and there's a lot of other things we can do in the meantime while you're weighing the benefits.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next one.
Okay.
All right, so this person is asking, is eating a variety of mostly good bug foods just as good as taking a probiotic?
Can we talk about my embarrassing moment when I was
I love
confused
it.
about bug food?
Andrea, we go, obviously we're picking the questions for the episode and we try to get as many as we can. She thought
I'm calling myself
she
out.
First went to
Crickets. I thought it was cricket powder.
cricket flour. Which is a thing, and
it
people
is a
do ask
thing.
about cricket, but that just shows you how wide-ranging the questions are.
I was gonna say,
it could be about cricket
you guys
flour,
need to
or it
see
could be
these
about
questions.
probiotics.
Yeah, you need to see these questions we get. So
No,
and we love it. The hotter, the better. Okay.
Yeah.
So we want these
the
questions.
stranger, the weirder, the most out there. But guys, this is when you guys said bug food, I did not immediately think of like probiotic rich foods. My first thought was, are they talking about a new cricket powder? Like that was like literally my first thought.
That was
But
great.
only in wellness would you be confused about the two.
Yeah.
If you think
That's
about it, it's like most people, it could go either way.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
Anyways,
they're
we're
both good
not
bugs.
talking about
Yeah.
cricket powder. We
But,
are talking about bacteria.
Submit your cricket powder questions if you have them.
Yeah.
Hello at drwillcole.com. So they want to know about probiotic rich foods.
Right. So getting a variety of these just as good as taking a probiotic.
Okay. Well, my take on this is, in most cases, at least foundationally, food is first. You cannot supplement your way out of a poor nutrient-less diet. So I am a massive fan for people who can digestively and otherwise immunologically tolerate probiotic-rich foods like kombucha or kefir or kvass or sauerkraut or kimchi. These yogurts, cheeses, water kefir, dairy kefir, plant-based milk kefir. So I think there's a place.
I think you're having fun listing these off.
Just so people know the wide world of probiotic-rich foods. It depends on what works for you. Do they work for everybody? We could talk about histamine intolerance, and we talk about it's modulating the gut microbiome, like the other things we talked about earlier. It's modulating the immune system. So start off low and slow. Have informed consent, even with these foods. The risk factors are a lot less. But food is medicine, still is medicine, and it's still modulating your biochemistry. So it's just generally, obviously, a lot more effective with really no side effects for most people. But we are used to seeing these sort of niche things that are even the healthiest of foods could be problematic for some people. Bioindividuality. So start off low and slow, meaning like a couple, even like a teaspoon of something. We have people start with before they have sauerkraut, just having the sauerkraut juice.
Yes.
So the prebiotic fibers are in there. So really, if you're sensitive digestively or otherwise, just start off low and slow. It is therapeutic. It is food as medicine, very much so. It's very potent, if you could use that word, for a food. And so the more diverse somebody's prebiotics, which fiber by its very definition is a prebiotic, it's food for the microbiome. So the pickled, fermented probiotic vegetables like the kimchi and the sauerkraut have prebiotics and probiotics. the more diverse somebody is eating things that have prebiotics, probiotics, parabiotics, which are actually like dead probiotics that have similar modulating effects, and postbiotics, which we've talked about in the pod before, the more diverse you are having your meals as medicine in that way, the more diverse your microbiome is going to be, which is associated in the scientific literature to longer health, a greater health span, better immune health, better gut health, all the things. Now, there's vast, significant exceptions to what I just said. Like, you don't want to be eating a variety of things if it's causing digestive problems. It's not necessarily the food's fault. It's what the larger human microbiome problem that we have, where people are reacting to things that otherwise are not problematic. So we have to heal, help get the gut's resilience so you can reintroduce these foods. And that's what we do with patients that have digestive problems and food sensitivities. But in theory, if someone has good digestion that wants to optimize their digestion, then I think that these fermented foods are a wonderful tool to consider. The difference is with supplementation is you're going to be getting things that maybe aren't in those foods and that have been studied to be very beneficial, and you're not going to get it necessarily in the amount. So I would say the type of bacteria that can be beneficial, that science shows to be beneficial, and the amount, and/or works there.
And/or does work there, not and both. But
what did you say? It doesn't matter.
No.
Anyway, and/or works there. That's all I know. Is that where if you see a spore-based probiotic, like some soil-based probiotic, you're not gonna get that in your glass of kombucha.
No.
Your Akkermansia, Mucinophilia, these sort of keystone bacteria, you're not gonna get that just randomly having pickled fermented foods and drinks. Postbiotics, there's a certain percentage of us that don't produce these end products of bacterial fermentation because of the human microbiome not being as where we would need it to be. So yes, we could eat polyphenol, ellagic acid rich pomegranates or berries like dark berries and currants and things like that. But there's a certain percentage of us that don't have the bacteria to ferment those polyphenols like ellagic acid to produce postbiotics like urolithin A. We know we run these labs for patients. Some people are low on butyrate. Maybe we don't have the type of bacteria that makes butyrate. So supplementation has its place with both prebiotics, probiotics, parabiotics, and postbiotics because you're moving the needle in a specific way with specifically clinically studied types of compounds or colony-forming units. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think often when we're talking with patients, we are really explaining that because, of course, the goal is to get you to a point where you can have these foods and have good variety. I mean, your gut needs that variety to function and to be optimal. And that would be the goal. But a lot of times, especially when we're going over these stool tests and these different types of labs that are giving us root causes that we need to focus on, we need the therapeutic probiotics with specific strains that are going to help us get to the place that we want to be at. And so I think that it's important to explain that because, sometimes we get into this culture where, at least I see this on social media, where it's like either you're really for it or you're so against it. And I think that even with something like this, we kind of see that a lot where it's like, oh, no, you just rely on the food, or no, you have to have a probiotic or you have to have a supplement for it. It can be both. It can be, hey, this season both. I have to. Why does this keep happening? Okay.
Why does this keep coming up in this conversation?
But it really...
I get what you're saying now. It's all, Andrea, it makes sense.
It can be though. Sometimes we do have to have a season where it is either and or no, guys, you're screwing me up now. I'm thinking too much here, but it really, we have to explain that where listen, that is the goal, but we need to focus therapeutically first.
Yeah, I agree. All of that is accurate. And when I'm thinking about this from a patient standpoint, not just a general public standpoint, because these are real whole foods that we're talking about that have very well studied benefits. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of other factors that we have to consider. You're laughing at me. What now?
Yeah, get whatever you said out of my mind.
And it should have been and both.
But you're right. Emails, I get that now.
I say, yeah.
And or emails, and or it works in email verbiage in the corporate world.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And when you have someone who's running your clinic, there's going to be some times where I use
whatever.
that.
See, she's completely vindicated now.
We win.
But I just want to speak to the fact that, we want to eventually, like you said, to bring this variety in. But it's also okay if those foods don't work for you. I see how many times do we see patients that are like, I'm trying so hard to eat sauerkraut, or I went and got kombucha, but I'm like bloated, or I'm running to the bathroom. I'm like, then don't have it. Like, we'll use a soil-based or spore-based probiotic. Like,
take it
it's
out.
Fine. Like, we'll figure out what you can do. You don't have to do everything you read and hear about just because it is healthy. There is some very specific personal things that you can do to meet your body where it's at. We have historically the last 100 years destroyed our soil. We are not getting the same probiotics and the same bacteria in our soil and on our foods. We have notoriously, you talk to any child of the 70s, 80s, or 90s, and they know what the pink flavored antibiotic was, like the bubblegum flavored antibiotic. Everybody goes, oh yeah, I was on that at least once a month. Like, we have decimated our guts. Our gut function, guts. Anyways.
Yeah, it works.
But it's one of those things where we just, like, it's okay to have that bio-individuality in this particular circumstance, but it's also okay not to fear food. But if you're having trouble navigating that, work with someone who can help you and release you from that pressure.
Right.
All
Absolutely. Right. Next question.
So the next question is, can you speak to the relationship between intermittent fasting and the gallbladder? Can the gallbladder distinguish between healthy fats and unhealthy fats? I picture like this little airplane sort of like navigating like the healthy fats.
Oh yeah, go this way, go that way.
Yeah. And she said, my diet does contain a ton of avocado, nut, olive oil, and coconut products. So she's mentioning all the healthy fats. Could these foods be contributing to gallbladder issues?
So two different types of questions there. So healthy fats and intermittent fasting first. So what happens to the gallbladder? Well, the gallbladder is having a rest it's that proverbial siesta during the fasting. So the gallbladder is sitting there. It's meant to contract when you have healthy fats. It's storing the bile to break down and digest those fats as bile salts. And when you're not eating, that contraction's not there. So you can have a accumulation or a concentration of bile that can happen there. It's a break for the body as a whole, not just the gallbladder. So generally, and I would say people that have gallbladder problems tend to are part of the larger cardiometabolic insulin-resistant complex, which fasting, generally speaking, as far as the scientific literature is concerned, and as far as what we see clinically, overall improves gallbladder markers and liver markers, GGT, AST, ALT. It improves insulin resistance markers. It lowers inflammation. It supports metabolic health when done appropriately. Being too aggressive with anything that's a hormetic effect on the body isn't a good thing. So we're assuming the person's doing it that's right for them. Speaking of the books I've written, Intuitive Fasting, like check out that book. That's what that book is all about. Is using this fasting as a medicine and meditation. So generally, I think is globally dealing with the liver and gallbladder health, it's a net positive for the vast majority of people that have gallbladder issues. When somebody then breaks that fast and then goes to high fat way of eating, that break the fast meal could cause some gallbladder, if someone is prone to gallbladder issues, right? Not just a general healthy gallbladder. Because it's concentrating the bile, and if there are stones in that gallbladder, going from not working to working really hard, I've seen, not the majority of people, but people that have a history of gallbladder stones, eating too much fat coming out of a longer fast could be problematic. So you want that break the fast meal to be gentle, slow, and you're working on your metabolic health over time. But if you've had these gallbladder problems for decades and you start with these more maybe interventionist nutritional lifestyle health protocols like fasting or the ketogenic diet or just upping your healthy fats as a whole, the vast majority of people, fine. But there are some people that are really, they've heard people talk about getting your healthy fats in, and they're maybe just overdoing it for their digestive system as a whole.
Yeah.
Where they're having looser stools, their stool is floating, they're having nausea, they're having indigestion, they're having gallbladder problems. So it's not the healthy fat's fault. We want to just maybe meet your gallbladder and gut where it's at to moderate that a bit. So yeah, I could see things like too much nuts and seeds, which beyond the fat, I would say that the roughage can be irritating, the lectins can be irritating, but same with avocados. Is it the fat? Is it the fiber that's irritating the gut too? All healthy, but there's different compounds within these whole foods that could be issues for one person and be a different compound within that food that could be problematic for someone else. But if you're talking strictly on the fat content, the answer is yes, the all types of fats are getting your gallbladder to work. Some are easier to digest than others. But if you notice, hey, when I have these foods, even if they're healthy foods that are have filled with healthy fats and you're having some gallbladder issues, meet your body where it's at, lower that fat intake, see if you notice a change. Maybe bring in some digestive support, like a lipase, a digestive enzyme, or a broad spectrum digestive enzyme. Maybe bring in something like ox bile or digestive bitters or HCl with pepsin to break down some protein, because maybe it's not the fat, maybe it's the protein that's not being digested properly. So having some digestive support while you're working on metabolic health and gut health is an approach that we would typically take. And we do see that fat malabsorption is an issue, and we talk about healthy fats, but it's a both and conversation. If I had to say, where we may just say, you maybe just overdid that whatever healthy fat too much. You're like overdoing it on the ghee or the coconut oil or the fatty cuts of meat or the fat on top of the broth that you skim that off. Like you're just too much of a good thing, basically.
Yeah, 100%.
Any thoughts?
Wow,
I left them speechless.
Whoa. No, I think for me, the whole time I'm thinking of course, yes, gallbladder function, but if you're looking at optimizing your liver, your gut, the microbiome function, right? I think, and you're going low and slow for some people who have this history, you're going to see improved function. You're going to see it navigated in a much better way too. And because you're going to be decreasing inflammation. So the liver is going to function better. Your gallbladder will be able to function better. And there are some people who we do have to bring in that digestive support to help, especially when getting started. But over time, if you're doing it the right way, I think you're going to find what works for you, and you're going to find that you may be able to have more fat than you used to have. A lot of times I think that if we're looking at your diet as a whole, was it focused on too many refined carbohydrates, sugars, plus some of these saturated fats included?
Mixed meal.
Yeah, that's going to have an impact. And so when you switch it too quickly and it is too much.
It is like that weird metabolic purgatory area. Yeah, I agree with you.
So.
Yeah, bile acids, like you can supplement, bile acids, bile salts, you can supplement with TUDCA. We see good success with that too.
Yeah.
That was actually what I was thinking about. I was just thinking about the poor patients that don't have a gallbladder and they're navigating this.
Well, that's a common question. I can hear the listeners' question. Then, well, what about if I don't have a gallbladder? Your body makes, like through the hepatic portal, your body still is storing the bile.
Yes.
But you may be storing less. And because your gallbladder is meant to store that bile, it's your body's still producing the bile even when you get the gallbladder. But to Andrea's point, you may have less tolerance for fats because you're not producing as much bile or not able to secrete it and break it down as optimally. Yeah. So advice for that would just be moderate fats and bring more digestive support in and support your metabolic health and gut health over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. You ready for the last one?
Yeah.
All right. Last one. This person is asking, how long could you be in the presence of mold until it impacts you?
So it depends on how sensitive you are. So there's both genetic and epigenetic reasons for this. So we could look at if you take the general view of epigenetics and genetics when you're talking about these chronic inflammatory response issues, about 1/3 is genetics, depending on the study that you cite, and then about 2/3 is epigenetics. So we want to look in health history and labs clinically with our telehealth patients. That's what we assess. The 1/3 looking at methylation gene variants, looking at HLA, human leukocyte antigen gene variants, looking at detoxification gene variants, looking at endocannabinoid gene variants. The more gene variants you have, the more likely when you're exposed to a stressor, a biotoxin like mold and like bacteria, like viruses, like other things, right? That even like we started this conversation with. Yeah. Things that are foreign, many people will be fine. Their body will have that stressor and they'll bounce back, no issue. And then some people, their body doesn't bounce back so much. And it was that hitting that tipping point, that bucket's overflowing. That 1/3 is like that bucket size. 2/3 is what fills up that bucket. You cannot change that bucket size, but you can change what you put in that bucket. And our job is to empty that bucket as much as possible, to have wiggle room, to have resilience, which we talked about in the last AMA, and building that resilience over time. So the smaller your bucket, the more gene SNPs you have, single nucleotide polymorphisms you have. And then on top of that, the more stress somebody's in epigenetically. What other environmental toxins are at play? Is there unresolved trauma that's creating this hypervigilant response? Is that mold going to be the straw that broke the camel's back, that flared up that camel, or not? So that is a variable so for some people, it's pretty immediate. Mm-hmm. Those canaries in the coal mine, which many of our patients are, they go in and they know right away, there's mold in this house, which, Andrea, you're probably one of those people.
I mean, when we traveled, I walked in and I said, there's mold here.
When we travel for work and we have like Airbnbs and things, we know pretty quickly, and it's our little hound dog.
I like the canary better.
I like hound dog.
Mold hound dog.
Yeah.
Rusty.
I mean, it's why you can have, 10 people in a home and maybe only 3 are not feeling well or can notice it, but pretty quickly, I would say probably within an hour.
We've left.
Yeah.
We've left.
We've had some experiences.
Airbnbs, they are understandable. Hopefully, they should be. And so the answer is it depends on that person and where's their bucket as far as it being overflowing, and how genetically are they more sensitive to these things. Some people, it's very low and slow, where they're in there weeks and months before years before it ever hits that tipping point. They're not the canaries in the coal mine. And these things are never healthy for anybody to be living in a moldy space for years on end. They're carcinogenic if these are toxic molds. They can trigger problems down the road. But these canaries in the coal mine typically can be, the silver lining in that is that they can address it earlier on. Mm-hmm. Whereas like if they live with a family or other people are in that home, they can address it way before because they're the ones having this issue pretty quickly versus their spouse who's maybe unintentionally gaslighting them a little bit, saying, you're just a hypochondriac. Like, it's not healthy for them either, but they're going to see these issues down the line if they keep living in a moldy space that's creating this low, slow inflammatory response for decades. So that's kind of the thoughts there.
Yeah. And I think also, even if you have a smaller bucket, I always joke with patients. I'm like, you can either, some people are a little espresso cup, and some people are, if you've ever gone to Starbucks and gotten a Trenta tea.
Never been there. What the heck? It's not mold free. It's not organic.
Lies. Such lies. But like my husband, he's like a Trenta. It doesn't make what he's doing good for him, but he just has more room in his cup. And I'm
what
like,
are you?
I'm an espresso cup. I look at something I shouldn't and it overflows. So it's like, it doesn't make what either of us are doing right or wrong. It just makes what we need to do like our primary focus. For me, I need to make sure that even if I'm traveling for a short period, it may impact me longer term. So I need to make sure that I am in an environment that's safe for me.
Yeah, well said.
And that's the biggest thing. And
it's good.
It's okay to advocate for yourself.
I think I'm a grande.
You probably are. Yeah, ice grande too.
That's all I was thinking
little
about.
BPA, little Botox.
Well, you're probably an espresso cup.
That's all I was thinking of.
You're like a tall.
Let's clear this up. The whole world just heard you say that. I am. But you know, I have methylation gene variants. I have HLA gene variants. That's what Andrea's referring to. So yeah, I definitely.
We just talked about that on the
I would say
podcast,
this.
too.
I'm not as much to be honest with you. I don't walk in and I don't feel like I don't know the mold right away.
Yeah.
If I smell it, like people, that's what people say. I don't smell the must. It's not like, I mean, these mold sensitive hound dog people do not need to smell it.
It's immediate fogginess. It's immediately,
it's their symptoms, not the smell. To be clear on that. So hound dog's kind of a misnomer.
That's
it's
why the
more
canary
like
works better.
Yeah, you're right. It's more of like an intuitive sense of like, oh, my symptoms are upregulating. Yes, the smell can be there.
Yeah.
But not always.
Yeah.
Not always, which we see with patients too. They're like, my house is brand new. It doesn't smell musty.
I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. Do you have water in your home? Okay, well then yes. Did you have a builder that maybe cut some corners? Possibly. I mean, we've had people that are on the surface, beautiful homes, very well taken care of. And then they come in and they have an evaluation and they're like, this whole house needs torn down. Like
it is horrible sometimes.
It's really sad.
But sometimes it's not that extreme.
Sometimes
I was gonna say, that's
that
not
was
the
an
average.
I
extreme.
don't want people to get afraid of like, I am never looking at this ever again.
Then there's some things that are just like, hey, you know what? You should get your ducts clean. You should get
HVAC systems are a very common area where mold can accumulate over time.
Yeah.
And it's circulating around the house. So definitely get your HVACs tested and or cleaned.
Yes.
And or.
And
This episode is brought to you by and or.
Or and both.
And both and. They don't pay well.
And grande.
They
Yeah, right.
don't pay at all.
They don't pay at all. All right, guys. Anything else? Are we
No.
good? All right. If you want to learn more about our clinical work, the telehealth center, there's lots of free resources of everything we've talked about. There's articles that I've written over the years, so check it out at drwillcole.com. We'll see you next time.